In August 2021, the world of football experienced a moment of collective cognitive dissonance. Lionel Messi, a man who had become synonymous with FC Barcelona over 2 decades, stood at a podium, choked with emotion, announcing his departure. The club's slogan, "Més que un club, more than a club," felt like a hollow irony. They wanted him to stay, he wanted to stay. But the mathematics of the situation were cold and unforgiving. Barcelona was broke. However, the real story didn't end with Messi's exit. It began there. Just 12 months after claiming they couldn't afford a single euro for their greatest legend, Barcelona embarked on a spending spree that defied every principle of financial gravity. Robert Lewandowski, Rafinha, Jules Koundé. Nearly €200 million in new talent arrived at the Camp Nou, while the club's total debt hovered north of €1.30 billion. The football world watched in a mix of awe and horror. Rivals called it financial doping, while fans wondered if the club had discovered a secret vault of gold. This is the story of how a global icon gambled its entire future on a series of high-stakes financial maneuvers known as the levers. It is a tale of how attention became survival, and how a brand attempted to spend its way out of a crisis that would have liquidated almost any other business on earth. To understand how Barcelona reached the cliff, we have to look at the wreckage left behind by the previous administration. Under President Josep Maria Bartomeu, the club operated with a Galactico complex, but without the fiscal discipline to back it up. The disaster didn't happen overnight. It was a slow-motion car crash that began in 2017. When Paris Saint-Germain triggered Neymar's €222 million release clause, Barcelona was flush with cash. In a sane business environment, this money would have been used to pay down debt or invest in infrastructure. Instead, panic set in. The board felt the pressure to replace a superstar immediately, and the market knew they were desperate. Selling clubs inflated their prices, knowing Barcelona had money to burn. Between 2017 and 2019, Barcelona spent over €400 million on just 3 players: Philippe Coutinho, Ousmane Dembele, and Antoine Griezmann. The breakdown of these transfers reveals the incompetence. Coutinho cost €135 million plus add-ons, yet he spent his best season on loan at Bayern Munich, where he scored against Barcelona in the infamous 8-2 defeat. Griezmann cost €120 million, a tactical mismatch from day one. Dembele cost €135 million, but injuries kept him off the pitch for half his tenure. None of them delivered on the pitch what was promised on the balance sheet. But the transfer fees were only half the problem. To convince these players to join, Barcelona offered astronomical wages. When the COVID-19 pandemic hit in 2020, the music stopped, the Camp Nou went silent, the museum tours ended, and the merchandise stayed on the shelves. Barcelona's revenue plummeted by hundreds of millions, exposing a net debt of €1.35 billion. More dangerously, €730 million of that debt was short-term, meaning it was due to be paid within a year. The club wasn't just in debt, it was facing a liquidity crisis that threatened its very existence as a fan-owned institution. In 2021, Joan Laporta returned as president, with a mandate to save the club. He inherited a situation where La Liga's economic control rules acted as a ruthless executioner. Unlike the Premier League, which punishes teams after they spend, the Spanish League sets a spending limit before the season starts, based on the previous year's health. Because of Barcelona's catastrophic losses, their limit was slashed from €671 million to just €97 million. They were €500 million over the limit. This was the moment of the firebreak. To even register new free agents like Memphis Depay or Eric Garcia, the club had to slash costs. Lionel Messi's contract, which had been worth over €555 million over 4 years, was simply too large to fit through the narrow door La Liga had left open. The image of Messi leaving was the ultimate signal of a brand in crisis. It wasn't a sporting decision, it was a mathematical sacrifice. Barcelona decided to double down. Laporta believed that without stars, the brand would die. He refused to let Barcelona become a common sense selling club, like Ajax or Benfica. By the summer of 2022, Barcelona faced a binary choice. They could accept a decade of mediocrity, selling their best players and relying on their youth academy, La Masia, to slowly climb back to the top. Or they could reimagine their business model by selling pieces of the club to fund an immediate return to glory. Laporta chose the latter. He famously termed these moves palancas, or levers. These were not loans, they were asset sales. The first and second levers involved selling 25% of their domestic television rights for the next 25 years to the American investment firm, Sixth Street. This brought in over €500 million in immediate cash. It was a massive injection of liquidity, but it came with a heavy price. For the next quarter century, 25% of the money earned every time a Barcelona game is broadcast goes straight to an investment office in California, not back into the club. This effectively reduced their future annual revenue by roughly €40 million per season until 2047. The third and fourth levers saw them selling 49% of Barca Studios, the club's content arm, for €200 million. They were betting on a digital revolution, NFTs, the metaverse, and global media rights. On a spreadsheet, they looked profitable. In reality, they had just sold a massive portion of their future earnings to pay for players like Robert Lewandowski today. It was the ultimate buy now, pay later scheme in the history of sports. Just as financial recovery seemed to be gaining traction, a legal nuclear bomb went off. In 2023, news broke that Barcelona had paid over €7 million to the former vice president of the Technical Committee of Referees. The Negreira case threatened to derail everything. Prosecutors accused the club of corruption in sports. While the club staunchly denied buying referees, the reputational damage was catastrophic. Investors panicked. The stadium project financing suddenly looked shaky. Who wants to lend €1.50 billion to a club that might be banned from the Champions League? Laporta went on a diplomatic offensive to ensure they wouldn't be exiled from Europe. They survived the immediate threat, but the case remains a sword of Damocles hanging over their future. The club also needed a new commercial face to restore credibility, leading to a controversial €280 million sponsorship deal with Spotify. For decades, Barcelona had resisted corporate sponsors on their stadium, but in 2022, the Spotify Camp Nou became a reality. It was a rebranding of the hub's identity. The deal was critical for optics, signaling to the market that a modern, tech-forward company still believed in the Barcelona brand, even if the banks were skeptical. To see the risk in Barcelona's approach, one only needs to look across the border to their eternal rivals, Real Madrid. While Barcelona was selling TV rights to survive, Real Madrid was building a bridge. Under Florentino Perez, Madrid took out a €1.10 billion loan, but they didn't spend it on players. They spent it on the Santiago Bernabéu Stadium renovation. They transformed their home into a 365-day-a-year revenue machine. The key innovation was a retractable pitch that allows the stadium to host NFL games, Taylor Swift concerts, and massive conventions without damaging the grass. Real Madrid diversified their income without selling their core assets. They kept their TV rights. They kept their media arms. Barcelona, by contrast, chose the cliff. They bet that by winning immediately, they could generate enough new revenue to offset the 25% they had already given away. Real Madrid focused on asset appreciation, making their stadium worth more. Barcelona focused on asset liquidation, selling what they already owned to pay bills. But what happens when the investors you've bet your future on don't show up with the cash? This is the dark side of the levers. The sale of Barca Studios, now rebranded as Barca Vision, has been a recurring nightmare. In 2024, the German firm Libero failed to pay a scheduled €40 million installment for their share of the studio. The club had to scramble, eventually bringing in Aramark, their catering partner, to cover the gap. As we enter 2026, the strategy has moved into its most critical phase. The real crown jewel is the return to the Spotify Camp Nou. After spending 2 seasons at the smaller Olympic Stadium in Montjuic, where the cold, poor visibility, and difficult access alienated fans, and calls the club to lose nearly €90 million a year in matchday income. The club has begun its gradual homecoming. In early 2026, the stadium reopened with a partial capacity of 62,000. By the end of the 2026/27 season, it will hit its full 105,000 seats. The financial projections are aggressive. They are betting on 9,000 VIP seats and a high-tech museum to generate €120 million alone. But this revenue is already spoken for. The club still carries €1.45 billion in stadium debt, with interest payments rising to €94 million annually by December 2026. Looking back at the trajectory from 2021 to 2026, Barcelona's strategy mirrors the mistakes identified in the automotive industry's most famous failures, specifically Jaguar's reimagined disaster. First, high-stakes subtraction. Barcelona discarded its identity as a fiscally responsible, academy-first club. They told their fans that success could only be bought. Second, attention without contingency. The levers created massive global hype. Barcelona is back, screamed the headlines. But when the team crashed out of the Champions League group stages in consecutive years, that hype turned into a liability. Third, no safety net. By selling 25% of their TV rights for 25 years, they removed their most reliable cushion. If a future global recession hits, Barcelona has 25% less income to absorb the blow. The levers didn't destroy the club, but they permanently changed its DNA. Barcelona is no longer just a football team owned by its members. It is a complex financial vehicle that must maintain a 95% stadium occupancy and reach at least the quarterfinals of the Champions League every single year just to break even. Barcelona burned the bridge in 2022. The number $1.35 billion remains the ghost in the room, a reminder that in the world of high-stakes storytelling, the most expensive thing you can ever buy is time. They bought time, but the bill is still due.